Hello and welcome to 100 Days to Hyrox. Fat to fit in your 40s as the tagline, and inspired by myself, but it was something that someone else said to me as well. Joining me today and someone that's guided me in my journey over the past 12 months and is solely to blame for me doing a Hyrox and the crazy things that I do, is Ben, my personal trainer, Ben Snell. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much for a lovely intro.
I say it's all your fault, in the nicest possible way. But yeah, so Ben, over the course of my journey that brought me to this, that Hyrox is kind of the next step. I sat down with Ben a little over 12 months ago now, having, as I've said to many people, never been in a gym before. I'd seen them on telly. That was as close as I got. And I remember sitting down with Ben and as probably one-to-ones that you have with a lot of people. And I said, no, I absolutely don't want to join the gym. I'm not a gym person. I just want to come in, train, don't really know what I want to achieve. Ben then put me on the Body Tracks machine. That was a rude awakening. And I'll be talking about some of those things. But yeah, seeing for the first time and hearing terms like visceral fat and dangerous and not what you expect at 6 o'clock in the morning while standing on a machine that's cold in your feet. So that was kind of the start of my journey. And from an absolute, well, even beyond beginner, having never done anything, the last time I'd exercised before that would have been in school, and yeah, had ignored nutrition and everything. And yeah, that was the start of my journey. We're going to be going into that a lot, but yeah, I have Ben to thank for that and my experience over the last 12 months and learning a lot. I've become a bit of a sponge, taking Ben's wisdom, and I now have a whole shelf of different powders of roots and things that I can't pronounce, of things that are helping, or I assume they're helping because I'm touch wood, I'm injury free, feel good, got lots of energy, so something's working. So while they're all natural, then that's good. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but the focus of obviously the next 100 days, starting on the 16th of July, is this the Hyrox. Now we've actually done some simulation Hyroxes in the teams and things like that, so we know we can do it. So it's more about just this next stage and what happens, and hopefully some of there's a big group of us going from the gym, and hopefully it's going to inspire some of them as well and inspire other people to just kind of make that change. And that's what I really want from this, is people to realize that you don't have to be born in a gym, been going to a gym from 18, have the physique, there's gym culture, there's the gear, there's all the rest of it. So there's these scary bits along the way, which aren't actually that scary, but there's lots of reasons why people don't. But I think one of the biggest ones, and what would have put me off at the beginning, and I remember it well, the idea of going to the gym on my own. It was all right when I was there with Ben because he knew what he was doing. I was just a fat person following him around doing as I was told, So the idea of doing that myself was quite kind of scary. But obviously, the more I got to know the equipment and the moves, and the plan that Ben gave me, then I was able to understanding it a little bit kind of better. So I want to give everyone that kind of experience. But coming over to you, Ben, in terms of you've been a PT for over 10 years, seen lots of transformations. I've said to Ben many times, I wouldn't like to see his photo album because he does before and after pictures. So he has lots of very random pictures of, semi-clad people on his phone. But what was the passion that got you into being a personal trainer in the first instance?
Yeah, so to become a personal trainer, one of the things that to be honest, almost ingrained in me from when I was a young child, is I was kind of indoctrinated into all sports. So I did a lot of basketball. Basketball was like my thing. Again, I did a lot of athletics. I would play any sport, tennis, and a lot of those physical attributes are very transferable. So you've got great endurance, let's say on a track, you've probably got good endurance in, let's say, most ball sports or, football or basketball, wherever it may be. And if you've got good hand-eye coordination, good balance, those are all transferable. So for me as a young child, a lot of that confidence that I have as a personal trainer now came from my abilities when I was a child, and gave me a lot of confidence that I have today in my own abilities. And when I was at school in Bognor Regis, we actually had a it was like a leadership program. It's called Sports Leadership Program. And it was for the older kids that were like year 10, year 11. They would run fitness events or sport events at school. So like sports days, they would put on stuff for like younger kids. And that was one of the coolest passions, because when you get to see these young kids getting into a sport that you might like, or you get to see them having fun doing exercise, where, most parents will probably know it's really difficult to get your kids to exercise these days. And these kids are enjoying playing games and sport for hours and hours, having fun. And you could see sometimes the shyest kid would come out of their shell when they do sport, or they found that new confidence, and they would become like the person in their school that did that sport. And I think a lot for adult, that for me is like one of the coolest things, that I meet all sorts of people, 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, but also 50, 60, and even 70-year-olds. And people like yourself, Paul, that have never touched the gym, not into sport. And one of my first clients, who is now just over 60, I met her when she was in her mid-ish 50s, something like that, or early 50s. And she's had a phenomenal transformation, but didn't exercise at all. First time I met, she was like, "Oh, I'm in this gym, just doing a few things." But now if you look at her, you would look and think, you've been gymming forever, almost impossible to get what you've done. But she's like, "I started in my 50s. So to give that confidence to someone at any age is fantastic. But especially, like you said, Paul, a lot of people kind of think their lives are over past 35 and it's all downhill from here. But as you're a prime example, just what's possible, and you can have the best years of your life, ahead of you. So that's kind of where my real passion lies, is giving people the opportunity to find their potential, and not just lose a bit of weight and look good and get some nice holiday pictures, but really do stuff like we're doing now, and really kind of push the physical boundaries, and kind of your own mental boundaries as well.
And obviously in the time that I've been training with you, again, that passion's come across. And also, I mentioned it when I was talking earlier, with your the kind of the deep knowledge and enjoyment you get out of all aspects of it, from the nutrition, from the finding homeopathic remedies and different kind of things, and ice baths and everything else. You kind of seem to just approach everything, but all of it's from experience. You will kind of literally do the ice bath and then try and get other people to do it and do everything else. So was that something that's grown with the personal training, or was that a passion that was always there?
I think just I've definitely had a passion just for getting better. So like, most people might obviously have a passion for sports, and they might have a passion for, maybe getting stronger, but I've just had a passion in getting better at most things. So I say this to Paul all the time, like, I'm trying to constantly improve, whether it be my fitness, or maybe it's like improving my lungs, my VO2 max, which is an element of your cardiovascular fitness, whether it be strength, whether it be power, speed, all these elements. But also constantly trying to find new information that can help me recover faster, or that can help me improve my mindset, or whether it be allowing me to recover faster. So I'm kind of just a real student of exercise and health. And when you're a student of it and you enjoy it and you love it and you're embracing all those things, you kind of want to share them with everyone that's on the journey with you. So it's nice. It's not like a teacher relationship. It's like almost a brothership, a brotherhood, or you're sharing with your friends, and what have you got? Can you teach me anything? So it's nice. It's really nice.
I always remember you talking about, it was the broccoli, the broccoli sprout.
Proud.
And you were saying there's some people that were, when you got particularly into that were kind of going, "Ben, it's enough for the broccoli sprouts now." We've had enough
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
a great cure if you never like, if you're not into it. But if you're into it, it's like one of those things that a lot of people understand, but like it's a bit more out there. People like broccoli sprout. Oh, I don't know about that. But it's one of those things, once you start to research the benefit, you kind of go, okay, how can I include this into my diet and lifestyle? You can be like, I need this. And then before you know it, you've been doing it for years, and it's just part of your norm. So
Absolutely. And as you said, that kind of student of fitness and health and getting better, and that's what kind of drives you. And so, this journey that you've got a group of us on, and you're on as well, because obviously you're competing in terms of Hyrox. Where did kind of Hyrox kind of fit into that in terms of the style? Because obviously there's CrossFit, there's various kind of things. Hyrox is a very specific one, and where do you see that kind of fitting for most people in terms of what it offers?
I think Hyrox is a really good almost entry level to like sport and exercise, because quite often if you have like these little groups that are in fitness culture or gym culture, you might have like powerlifting that's very isolated. So you're doing specific movements and you're going to do them for a competition. You do those 3 main movements and you can get really strong at that, but then also you neglect maybe other elements of fitness that can be really beneficial for you. The same if you just do like running or you just do cardio, there's a lot of strength elements that you're neglecting. As you mentioned there, things like CrossFit are fantastic because they kind of, you get the best of both worlds. You get strength, you get gymnastics, you get speed, power, you get cardiovascular improvement, but the quite difficult to progress, I think, because you have to spend a lot of time on it. Some of it's quite technical. Whereas Hyrox, you probably, almost anyone could do a Hyrox as long as you can kind of run a bit and you can got some kind of strength. And regardless of your overall ability, most people probably could do a Hyrox because most of the movements are, I would say, very non-technical. And the great thing about that is that it opens the doors to more people doing it. And then obviously once you've done it once, you build that confidence. And then before you know it, you get into it and you start again, how can I improve? How can I get better at this? And then you can start getting into the specific training, like, okay, how can I get maybe stronger legs, or how can I get a stronger upper body for this? Or how can I improve this? And you become a bit more specific, but Hyrox is so varied in its movement that you can't just be a really good runner and then you'll get to basically, if you're really lean and not very strong, you'll struggle on some of the strength elements. And if you vice versa, you're struggling on the running or some of the other cardio elements, you're just really strong. So you kind of have to have a good overall fitness, which is one of the things that I try and encourage most people to have, is not to be too one-sided. You want to have good elements of each kind of the struts of fitness.
Yeah, and that's come across in the training we've done before this. There's some amazing people at the gym, who are in there doing kind of weights and calisthenics and CrossFit and everything else. But yeah, one of the things that I've come to enjoy, and for me it kind of embodied in Hyrox, is, and a term that you use, that functional fitness. It's being able to, okay, technically, I know I can jump up onto my kitchen counter from a standing jump. I never want to do that, but I know that I could if, but yeah, because of the height we've done in the gym. But yeah, being able to, kind of jump and run and push and pull and do all the, an exaggerated version of everyday movements. And that's what I quite like. It's, I remember saying to you a number of times, not that there's anything wrong with it, but for me, I didn't want to be someone that couldn't actually put their arms down beside their body. I wanted to be functional, and I wanted to be healthy, and that was really what I kind of set out to. So for me, it's kind of it's fitted well into that, so it's kind of worked for me. But yeah, I wanted to. It seems like something that's all round, and I know there's a lot of debate that goes on between Hyrox and CrossFit, and having seen some of the CrossFits, CrossFit is much more, gymnastics based. It's much more skill based. You have to know the movements and be able to do specific movements. Whereas, as you said, and in my layman's terms, if you can do something non-stop for about an hour and a half, you can probably do a Hyrox, at high intensity, because it is that endurance side of it. It is that kind of engine to just kind of keep going. So, as such, we've obviously got the Hyrox that's 100 days away in October, and we're now doing a Hyrox-esque different event, which is just before this 100-day kind of countdown, just for the fun of it, which is called Cyclone, which is in Horsham, which is again inspired by that. There's 6 lots of running, 6 slightly different stations, but it's the same kind of thing. So that should be a bit of fun. And I know you're already cooking up various other things, a kind of an Olympics event in August, which Ben, I said to Ben he needs to work on his sales pitch, because he said, I'm doing this Olympics event, because he'd done a strongman one before. I said, yeah, that sounds fun. These are some dates in August. Yep, still sounding good. It's 3 to 5 hours long. I was like, yeah. So I said yes anyway. But what, is that something, again, a bit like all the bits that you're pulling together? Is that another aim for you to give people something kind of fun and bring that group together, something to aim for and do together? Is that the idea behind that?
I think you're exactly right, Paul. One of the things that a lot of people say is, or I say to a lot of people, to be fair, is I do a lot of the stuff with our groups or people that I really enjoy. I'm very biased, so a lot of things that I enjoy I will try and not persuade people into that group, but like I will, like this Olympics event that we're planning. It sounds to me really, really fun, and all the activities look really, really fun. They're kind of team building activities, but they're also physical exercise. But there's a goal. It's not just like reps. It's like competitive, but you're working in a team. Sometimes there's strategy involved, and there's a lot of variation in that day rather than just like a lot of repetition of the same thing. So for me, it's something like that is really fun and it's very memorable. And like a lot of sport, there's a lot of variation in sport. So you're not going to just go to the gym and go, right, I'm going to do X amount of reps, the same thing I've done for the last 6 weeks, and I know exactly what I'm doing. It kind of gets a bit boring. Stuff like that, that's always varied, is quite fun. And especially a special event like this or training for Hyrox is something good because you've got something that you can aim for. And obviously, when you've got something you can aim for, you can be a little bit more specific. But the great thing about Hyrox, obviously, there is a lot of variation there. So you're not going to get too bored. If it was just a running event, there's a lot of running to do. And obviously, there's a lot of variation you can do in running sprints. You can change the duration, the length, the recovery time. But one of the great things about obviously what we're planning on doing in the next 100 days is that we should pretty much touch on almost all elements of fitness. So we're going to be working on balance, stability. We're going to be working on upper body strength and upper body endurance. We're going to be doing a lot of functional stuff, as Paul said. So some of the exercises that we might be doing are, I think, like pushing a sled and pulling a sled, which, you know, may not seem very functional, but if you've got a dodgy old van like I do, you may have to push it every now and again to get it bump started, and even pulling things, you know, getting just daily functional stuff that you don't really think about. But when you train for it, I know Paul's done the same when you were kind of doing your DIY in your house. I'd be lifting these 25 kilo, 30 kilo bags of rubble out of my house, and I had 50 of them. And it was like very durable because I've trained a lot in that aspect, not just like dumbbells, bicep curls, but I've trained a lot of bags, ball sands, all that kind of stuff. So again, that functional element is really fun for me. And that's why I quite enjoy doing these special events and things like Hyrox as well, something that you can enjoy whilst you're doing it.
Well, obviously, you brought us fantastically to be talking about the plan, but I just want to, before we dive into that, obviously the Olympics one, because I know it's still in the kind of plan. Are you actually going to be taking part in this one, or are you just going to be running it? Because that's one of the things. Sometimes you, as you said, you do these things that you like the idea of, but then you get stuck kind of not actually getting involved with them. So, are you competing in this one, or?
I would tell you what, Paul, I'd love to compete in this one, but unfortunately, well, I've tried to do it before when I've competed in it, and it just didn't. From a organized perspective, it wasn't as clear cut. So sometimes I generally need to sit back and be referee and organizer. But I get a lot of enjoyment out of, again, a lot of my friends and a lot of our group get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing them progress and have fun and laugh, and they get a lot of good memories, and things that we chat about even 5 years later are still kind of on their mind. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Excellent. So you've teased it and you've mentioned it, and this 100-day plan that you've put together to take us, from the 16th of July up to Friday. I've just forgotten the date in October, but tail end of October, 100 days later. So talk us through the idea behind the plan in terms of what the stages are over that 100 days and things like that.
Yeah, so we've basically got a couple of stages. So the initial stages, we've got 3 major stages that we're building on. The first stage is about 5 weeks. The second stage is another 5 weeks, and the last stage is about 4 weeks. And generally, you don't just want to do loads of Hyrox stuff, just training the Hyrox movement, because although you get really proficient at those movements and they can become quite specialized, you want to actually build a lot of the muscle groups and a lot of the energy systems that you're going to use in the Hyrox. And just doing Hyrox all the time isn't necessarily the best way. Although I've never technically done a Hyrox event, we've done a couple now in the gym, a couple of like one. And just in general, how you would train for something like this, you'd want to make sure that you have really strong legs. Those legs have really good endurance. You want to have really good aerobic threshold, aerobic capacity. You want to have generally pretty good recovery. So all of those things that you can train, but also because there are some strength elements, you ideally want to maintain as much muscle mass as you can to make those strength elements easier, but not too much muscle mass that it bogs you down on things like the running. So one of the things that we're doing initially is we're going to be building a lot of strength in the first phase. for a lot of the movement that we are going to be doing, for a lot of the traditional strength movement that are just really good for, let's say, the upper body and the lower body, less specificity. But then as we progress through the plan, we will start to increase the amount of volume that we're doing in those exercises. So the exercises can stay the same, but we're going to increase the volume. That will start to push those legs a little bit harder, should improve the endurance. And then when we get to the later stages of the plan, that's when we start to add in a bit more specificity to the training. We start doing more Hyrox specific stuff, more tactic, more practicing of the transitions and movements and all those very specific things. So we can build up all those base level, foundational levels of strength and aerobic capacity in an early stage. And then as we progress, those foundational levels are there, and we're just building up that pyramid that hopefully we can improve that specificity, that when we turn up at the Hyrox, we're all very prepared and ready to go. Sure.
Been cat bombed. Hello. Yes, you're already fit. You're not helping. Sorry, just cat suddenly ran in there. In case you're just listening to this, and I don't edit that out, there is suddenly a cat that wants some attention. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about that word that I was impressed you said multiple times, and I can't say. But because one of the things that I've kind of dived into watching lots of videos about Hyrox and people training and things like that. And one of the things is, although a lot of the movements and sled push and pull being one, obviously you're working various muscle groups and it's a good type of exercise, but it's not the best type of exercise for any of those muscle groups, because basically doing lots of sled pushes only really gets you good at doing sled pushes. It's kind of like quite a specialist thing, and if it's been in routines, and one of the plans that that I had with me for a few months, had sled push in there because it was building up shoulders and things like that, and something a bit kind of different. But so I guess that's where some of this kind of works in terms of doing these general movements, and you said building up the reps and the capacity and things like that to build that overall kind of strength. So what are some of the movements in the kind of the first phase that we're going to be doing?
So a lot of the movements that we're doing are more traditional kind of compound movements. So a lot that we do already, but with a specific focus on building strength, is generally going to be lower rep ranges, but not super low rep ranges. So more of a just below hypertrophy rep range, which hypertrophy is more of a bodybuilding rep range that can increase muscle mass. What we're going to be focusing on trying to increase muscle strength, which is generally the lower rep range. So quite often in that 1 to kind of 6 rep range. So we're going to be starting off round about there, but not necessarily super low in the kind of 2s and 3s, but we're going to be working in the 4s to 8. And then once we've progressed from there, again, we might be doing things like squats, deadlifts. We're going to be doing a lot of lunges, presses, because we just want to keep our whole body nice and strong. So we want to build a really strong and fit, stable body. One of the things in a book that really kind of highlight this is a book I read a few years ago about Ross Edgley, who's like the guy that came around the UK. And so Ross basically talked about his preparation for it. Again, he's super knowledgeable in regards to training. And no one had ever swum around the UK before. People had got, I think, maybe 200 miles, but they had given up. And Ross is a very short man, but he's a very strong man. He used to do a lot of water polo. He's got shoulders that most bodybuilders would like idolize, but doesn't look like a swimmer at all, or very dense, not very good at, well, I say very good at swimming, but not very like super fast, or not like a long distance swimmer. The total opposite body that you'd expect. But one of the things that he needed to be able to swim that distance is that he needed to be able to do the amount of repetitions that a long distance swimmer would do without those joints and those muscles fatiguing to a stage where they are almost in disrepair. So one of the things that we do as personal trainers, we're trying to build up people's joint and strength in most of the major kind of compound movement. They have better mobility, but also they can do more repetition. Once you get stronger, you can do more repetitions that are lighter weight. Whereas if you always use the light weight, you can maybe do more repetition, but you're putting more stress in that joint. Where if let's say your squat, you usually only squat 50 kilos, those joints are used to a 50 kilo load. Whereas if you squat 100 kilos on a regular basis, and you have really strong joints that are quite often able to take like 100 kilos, but then you do something like 100 body weight squats, it's probably not going to seem too bad, because 100 body weight squat compared to 100 kilos on your body, so different. But those joints are used to that huge amounts of stress. But the body weight squats don't really seem like anything. So hopefully we can build up really good joint and ligament strength, tendon strength, and also musculature, that we can minimize our chance of injury, especially with doing the amount of volume of training that we have later on in the training. Yeah, one of the best things you could do if anyone ever wants to limit their risk of any injury is do a lot of strength training. Make sure you have good mobility, but strength training, without a doubt, strengthening all those joints and muscles.
Fantastic. And so, what's the biggest difference, and again in the movement basis, between that first stage and those last couple of weeks right before Hyrox, in kind of 80 odd days time?
There's definitely more recovery in the first one. So there's a bit more recovery, because where the main focus is on trying to lift heavier weight. There are still going to be elements where we are focused on doing kind of HIIT interval type training stuff, specifically for a time, or we might be very specific on like 1 day a week. The training program, I think, calls for 5 to 6 days a week, but again, very often we have different skill levels coming to the Hyrox. We also have different levels of commitment that people are willing to kind of give up to train for. And not everyone is like wanting to train 6 days a week. Some people are really keen on it, but again, some just want to do 2 to 3 days a week. So depending on how much you're willing to commit to it, it might require 2 strength sessions, 2 cardiovascular sessions, and then like a very specific session, which we kind of do on a Saturday or a Sunday, that is training those movements. So they're in the back of our head. We're just keeping them kind of in our back pocket, so we know exactly how to do them. We not like we haven't done a sled push for a year or 100 days. We're going to make sure that those specifics are still there, but we're going to be building up our base level. And some of the things that we're going to be doing from a cardiovascular point of view, or an aerobic point of view, anaerobic point of view, is doing like long, steady zone 2 runs, just to build our endurance and build our base. Sometimes we might be doing faster pace runs with longer recovery. So we might be doing 200 to 300 meters at a very fast pace with a similar-ish recovery, just so we can get full recovery, but our body can get used to working at higher capacity. Whereas the steady state ones, our heart rate will be much lower, but we have a longer base that we can build out. You're kind of strengthening and improving both elements of those fitness, because Hyrox, obviously you can go very slow, but the idea is to go fast. So to get faster and stronger and improve your aerobic capacity, is they're almost pulling different directions. So to train all 3 of those in a similar amount of time is going to be very specific. So we have to strength train in certain areas, and then we're going to do some more intense stuff in certain areas, and then some very slow, easy stuff in certain areas. All of that combined, as we start to hype up and increase it, should give us the ability to get a good time in Hyrox.
And I mean, you said kind of early on, and the plan kind of does this as well, is that all of us that are doing it, yourself, me, who are training regularly, obviously this plan is going to be to push us from where we currently are. But if we were back talking to the July 2023 me, who certainly wasn't in a position to kind of do a Hyrox, but obviously the 100 days and that kind of period, I can't remember when we did the first kind of simulation one, but I think it was at the beginning of this year. So it was probably after about 6 or 7 months, and it was like, oh, okay, I can actually do this. So it is possible. And as you said, it's about the speed and how well you recover from it, and how hard it is. But, anybody could, following a plan, and if they got into it and were training, could go, right, I'm going to do a Hyrox. Your biggest issue would be getting a ticket, because that's the hardest thing. You wouldn't be able to do it in 100 days, because you wouldn't get a ticket unless you went abroad. But so it is, and that's, I think, one of the things that comes across in a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, is that, and I know it's a bit of a trick and a mental thing that I've had to get my head around, is because you're constantly getting better, and there are squats and lunges, as I was saying to someone in the gym today, they were one of the very first exercises I did back in June last year, and I still do them every day now, and because it's not like you grow out of them and, oh, I'm better now, I don't do that. It's that repetition and building, but often it's the reminder of like, yeah, I am stronger, faster, fitter than I was then, but because you're constantly pushing yourself, you never get to a point where it's like, right, I'm perfect now, everything is easy, because if you reach that
Yeah.
point, then you'll start going backwards. It's that
Yeah,
constant
exactly.
drive, but it's a mental switch that you have to kind of do that. It's like, oh, everything's still hard even after a year, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't stop getting hard. But how do you deal with that from a personal trainer point of view? Because I can imagine that can be a stumbling block, and people keep, why is it still hard?
You're 100% Paul. This is something that I think a lot of my clients have asked me in the past, and they're trying to overcome it themselves. But some people, it depends on the person as well. I think sometimes, because some people I've trained one person, let's say, for the last 6-7 years, and that one person, that's exactly as you just said, we've been squatting for 6 years, 7 years, and we don't do it and don't do anything different. And it's like, well, the foundation of a squat is like so good for you. And then same like deadlifts, those exercises are so fundamental to overall strength and so fundamental to a good, strong body, that they're like the best ones you could do. So if you only had to do 5 exercises to build a strong body, you'd want to do those main 5 to 7 compound exercises, and you'd have a fantastic, strong body. But sometimes people like variation. So a lot of people that do classes, they like the variation. They like something different. They like working towards challenges, which I totally get, because I've been training in the gym since I was 16, and now I'm 35, and I'm still doing the same movements that I did when I was 16. And I'm still, depending if you're going, let's say you're progressing through some weights, you're improving in strength, and then maybe have a little bit of time off. Strength can go up and down, as you mentioned. You're constantly adapting to your workload. So often I say to people that imagine that you're on a treadmill that's just going very slowly, and all the time you're moving forward, you're progressing, getting there. But sometimes even just walking, staying in the same place is good enough. But as soon as you stop, you're going to start to go backwards. And that's the most difficult thing for most people to wrap their head around, is that exercise isn't something that you kind of complete and go, right, got my body now, got my percentage, really happy with everything, I can retire. Is something that you're going to have to do if you want to stay fit and strong and healthy pretty much for the rest of your life. It can change and it can adapt. Doesn't mean you have to do the same thing you were doing when you were 20, but you can do a lot of that stuff into your 60s and 70s. Just adapt it and make sure that it's achievable for whatever age and abilities that you have.
And I
You're
think
not wrong for it.
that's something that feeds into it, and this is a whole nother kind of subject. But this kind of idea that, and I was someone that would have thought this over a year ago, that people go to the gym to do a specific thing, and then when you've done the specific thing, you stop, and it's seen as this kind of this fix or something like that, and it is, kind of understanding that, functional fitness and health and everything that I've learned, and obviously everything from being in the gym for 19 years, is that it's not so much to say it's a lifestyle. That sounds like it. I think that does it a disservice almost. But it's making a conscious choice if I want to be fit and strong, and you do that by lots of little compound things done over a long period of time. Which is the other thing that the 100 days to Hyrox is attached to, is this thing I've called the tortoise way, because it is that idea of, it is just that slow progress every day. If you join the gym tomorrow because you want to have insert 6-pack or whatever it might be in X number of weeks, you're probably not going to do that, and you're going to set yourself up for a fall. But it's then about, but then what? And if you chase those quick fixes, the the magic bullets, I saw this on TikTok, on YouTube, on Reels or whatever, and people did this. It's all the rest of the stuff that goes behind it. And I think that's been, for me, the biggest takeaway, is it is that slow progress, almost kind of unseen to a degree. And yeah, you get to a point, again, with you being in the gym for 19 years, it is very much about maintaining. But as you get older and your body changes and lifestyle changes, you're then having to adapt to those changes to stay where you want to be. But equally, and from what I know, this could be right. You don't go into the gym every day and you don't do your own training to kind of go, right, I'm aiming for this. It's just, no, I want to remain this level of healthy, this level of fit. And I do that by just, maintaining what I'm doing. So, um,
Yeah, you're 100% right, Paul. Especially what you kind of just mentioned there, how it is really that tortoise way, because one of the biggest things that I find is a lot of people do come in with a plan. Quite often, men and women always have their different goals, but it could be a specific day or a specific weight that they want to achieve. And quite often it's they're doing a few things, making a few changes. Most people can make a few changes for a couple of weeks or a month, but it's really that long term, what happens after a year, because I've seen so many people that have got incredible results in the year. Fantastic. They post it all out on social media. Look at my weight loss. I'm feeling amazing. And then as soon as they slip up a little bit, maybe they go on holiday, they don't get back to the gym straight away. And then next time they go to the gym, it's a little bit harder and they go, oh, I can't be bothered. And then before you know it, you're allowing your body to slip back into what you previously were, which was someone that didn't go to the gym, wasn't maybe on their nutrition as much as they were. And before you know it, you're back to where you were, or even worse. And there's a little saying that I say to a couple of my clients, who I may have said to Paul, which is you kind of always want to be vanilla or the gray man. You want to be not the person doing anything crazy. You just want to be the guy that's super consistent, not doing anything crazy or, something, I don't know, stupid in the gym, just doing the work that you have to do on a daily basis. And knowing, yeah, I've ticked that off, done that for today, stuck to some good nutrition. Yeah, obviously, if you want to have some stuff here and there, a little bit outside the diet, or you want to miss training now and again. But it's about the 85%, 90% of the time sticking to what you have to do and just being, super boring, super vanilla, and just getting your workouts in.
Yeah. But it's, I liken it to the, from the consistency point of view. I like metaphors, and I like kind of finding fun ways to kind of equate things with other things. And to me, it's, and I think I stole these from a book recently, because there's two versions of the same thing: sleep and breathing. You can't take one big breath and get through the whole week on it. In the same way that you can't sleep for 24 hours and then not sleep for the rest of it. And exercise is the same. We survive and thrive by sleeping little and often, every day. We breathe constantly through the day, and exercise is another one of those same things. You just do it continually, and it's part of everyday life in terms of brushing your teeth, and if you treat it like that as a function of life, then that's when you get that real kind of mentality shift in terms of, okay, this is just something that slots into my day. And it's not that big thing. It's not that pressure thing. And it's okay, if I go and do this and I turn up and I train 6 days a week and I keep doing that, I wonder what I'll look like in 6 weeks' time. I wonder what I'll be able to do in 6 weeks' time. And then, well, what will 6 weeks after that be? And it's just that slow kind of progress. But yeah, I think it is that shift to it's not that quick fix. It is the consistency that's key. And it's certainly something for me, understanding that and coming into, I mean, I was fortunate when I sat down for you in that first conversation, I literally had nothing in mind. I hadn't weighed myself for a while, so I had no weight goal. It's a standing joke when I look back at photos now, and it's like, who is that person? Because you get used to the person in the mirror, and I thought I looked okay, so I didn't have any big drivers, so therefore I didn't have any, right, I want to do this by this date or whatever. It was just kind of like, yeah, I know something has got to change. And so it's, yeah, there was lots of little bits along the way, but as I'm going to be talking about with some of my body track scan, there are dozens of times where if I've been aiming for a certain weight or seeing my metabolic age change or my visceral fat or anything, I could have given up if that had been the thing that I was chasing, because it would go down and then it would go up. And it's, oh, what's the point? But because that wasn't the aim, yeah, there was lots of little goals in between. Once I got below 20% fat, well, that was cool. And it was chasing the next thing. And once I lost 1 stone, oh, cool, 2 stone. And so you have all those little markers, which are just that you can celebrate along the way, but it's not the goal. The goal is to me, becoming the person that can train regularly and be fit and healthy. That's the goal, is becoming that person, as opposed to the goal of becoming a certain weight. Well, if you don't become the person that becomes the weight, because, you go to the doctor, get a magic pill and lose weight. So you can be the person that's that weight, but you haven't learned how to get there, and you're not going to be able to maintain it, So I think it is that knowledge. And I love the line you used earlier, being, a student of health and fitness kind of thing. And I think that's what you have to become to get that sustained, kind of change. So,
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better, Paul. Like you said, it's so often, exactly as you just mentioned there, that people that are trying to, I always use the analogy that if you go to work and if you say, I don't know, you don't fancy going to work that day, there's probably an immediate reaction that, like, you might get fired, disciplinary, something like that. And if you don't turn up to work for a week, you probably get fired. There is an immediate accountability to your actions, that there's no money coming in, your entire life might change, get kicked out of your house, whatever it may be, that your whole life changes. So we have to go to work, and we prioritize that, because that is a big thing. But with exercise or your fitness, it's always down the road, because after a workout, I don't see my abs pop out anymore and I go, oh, I've got abs now. It's always in the future. So keeping healthy now doesn't affect my next week, doesn't affect 2 week time, affect me in 10 years time, when maybe they're more likely to get chronic diseases. And if I haven't exercised as much, then I'm be more likely to get those, and things like diabetes and stuff that really do start to hit you harder when you start to lose muscle mass, and when your diet hasn't been good for a long period of time. Because one of the best things people can do is maintain good muscle mass as a way to deter or not to get diabetes. And to obviously get good muscle mass, you can't do that overnight, and you can't get diabetes overnight. Both of those take time, but depends which way you want to go. If you don't do anything about it for a couple of years, and then you suddenly get it and go, this is a surprise. Or you could go, oh, I'm going to exercise for a few years and I feel really great. You've earned that in the future, So that's that accountability, that what we have with exercise. We're always putting it off to the future, going, right, that future, Paul. I give you an example now, Paul. If a year ago, could you see yourself as you are now, the person that I'm looking at? Did this Paul that I sat down with, did he know that he could do a Hyrox, or did he know that he could look this good, or train this hard, or look, the physique that you've got now? Probably wasn't in your mind or anything, right?
No, not at all. No, I had no inkling whatsoever, no desire whatsoever. I'd always give myself the excuse of not doing exercise, that I used to play a lot of football when I was younger, and I liked playing badminton. And so I linked it in with, I like competitive sports. I couldn't go to the gym because there's no competition. So that was my get out of not being able to do those things. And just, it got to a point where I look back now and I say, I can barely recognize the person that I was just over a year ago. And it's quite profound. And there's lots of bumps along the way. It's not all rosy. I think, and we've talked about this, that you go through this stage of people start to notice. And initially you get that kind of, oh, wow. And then you get to the point, because I've seen my body adapt and change, and my face change, and at various stages, I was getting used to my face changing in the mirror, but I didn't like it at various stages. And again, I think part of this, I think we're almost kind of programmed to that. If someone's got rosy, puffy cheeks, they're healthy. So when you're kind of losing weight and you're losing that fat, and your face kind of changes, and people go, oh, you've lost a bit too much now, and it's always very difficult, because a lot of the times that comes from someone who isn't particularly healthy. But again, they're just reacting to kind of what they see, and that preconceived perception of what kind of health is. And that's been something that's thrown people off as well. They're going, oh, are you still losing weight? I said, well, I never set out to lose weight. Yeah, but you've lost loads of weight. I said, yeah, but I didn't set out to do that. I've targeted and what I still want to do. I said, there's still some fat I want to lose, but if I end up being 5 kilograms heavier than I am now, but I've lost that fat, then I'm happy. And again, to a lot of people, they're kind of going, no, I don't understand. If you've lost the fat, how, well, replace it with muscle, but that's, again, something that sticks in my head still now. And again, having done the body tracks regularly, and obviously seeing my water levels, my muscle, my fat. And it was a line that you said to me, which rings in my ears all the time. And there's a level of kind of frustration, but it drives me in a positive way. Is you said to me that I might have the perfect amount of muscle for my body, but I'm carrying too much fat. And that's something that's kind of borne out. I'm a lot stronger than I was then, but in terms of volume of muscle, I haven't got more muscle than I started. It's in different places. It's stronger. It's everything else. But and again, that could have been something if I'd been sat there going, no, I want to put on more muscle. After a year of training, and I've been eating the protein and doing all the kind of different things, I don't have more muscle. But because that wasn't the driver that started there, it was just a kind of like, okay, but I'm seeing all the rest of the improvements. And again, I think but I've become the person that can do that. And again, it's how you set those goals, I think more often than not, I think sets people up for a fall because you're chasing what TV says, what social media says, what is being seen that you should be doing without understanding what's actually goes on. And that's one of the other bits that I've enjoyed is actually better understanding my own body, understanding the importance of protein and resistance exercise and 101 different powders, and recovery, and sleep. I love it when you can have, as grown-ups, because there's been a few conversations in the gym with a group of us where it almost becomes, and it feels weird that this isn't the only other time I think this conversation will happen is in the playground, is when you've got a group of grown adults going, I go to bed at 9, I'm in bed at 8:30. And it's a competition that who can go to bed the earliest to get their full sleep to get up in the morning. And that just feels like, we're adults and we're seeing who can go to bed earliest, which seems counterproductive, but that's another important part of it in terms of recovery and sleep and everything else. Yeah. So yeah,
You're 100% right.
So, well, thanks for kind of taking us through the plan, and we're going to be touching on that in kind of other bits and taking us through and hearing a bit about kind of your passion as a PT and how you got into it. That's been great. We're going to be chatting again about some of the basics and mindset and some of the other things as well. But we'll wrap that up for today. So otherwise, as always, and I'm sure some of the times when I'm doing PT sessions with Ben, my rests are a little bit longer because we just kind of get engrossed in a conversation and it's kind of like, oh, should do some more exercise. So we could just kind of chat all day. But thank you for your time, Ben, and insight and this plan, which I know I'll say it now because I haven't looked at it in detail. But I will be enjoying over the next 100 days and hopefully taking some people on this journey as well, kind of seeing what we're kind of getting up to. So thanks for putting that together. And obviously, it's something that a group of us will be doing as well, yourself included. And we'll see what this looks like and what this conversation looks like in 100+ days when we've finally done this Hyrox. And I have a sneaky suspicion from most of the people that we're training with the Hyrox that this is the first Hyrox, but I have a sneaky suspicion it's not going to be the last. I think that there's been some talk of doing the singles because obviously we're doing the doubles in October. So I think there's a few of us brave or foolish enough to potentially contemplate the solos as well. So that should be fun. So yeah, thank you again for your time, Ben, and yeah, we shall speak again soon.